Okay, welcome to episode 102 of Shockwaves. I'm one of your hosts, Rob Galluzzo. I'm gonna skip the coughing man and go right to Ryan Turek.
Oh wow, it's nice to be second this time.
Rebekah McKendry's here.
Hello.
And the Kane. The Elric Kane.
Hello.
Was that a real cough, or were you just trying to
totally
avoid?
Artificial. I was just,
Just messing with us?
Yeah, I was just messing.
All right, fair enough.
Gotta keep you on toe. 102, baby. 102.
102. Gotta mix it up. And by the way, thank you to everybody that commented about last week, because I definitely thought it would have been divided, but and I don't want to jinx us and don't be an asshole now, but literally, like, unanimously, a lot of people were really blown away by the whole Tubular Bell story and what Christian did here. So,
and I think it's also a testament that we have to go outside the box for the next 100 because we've been doing this for so long.
Yeah.
We keep coming up with new ideas and try new things.
We've got some pretty cool stuff planned for the summer.
Except for tonight. Tonight we're back to a normal.
Tonight's a normal interview, but it's going to be an awesome interview.
Yes, this is true. So yeah, thank you for that. Let's talk about Etheria, because that has officially happened, and we have a winner for the Stephanie Rothman scholarship.
Oh yeah, we got to be Bekah's Vanna White. It was cool.
We didn't say a word.
I wanted you guys to come up and like give little speeches, and I think
nobody wants to hear from us.
Elric was Bekah, but then I when we got up there, I was like, I don't think they want to hear us talk. So I kind of
it was like Lori Petty, Rachel Talalay, and now Bekah. Like, what are we going to say?
So it was absolutely awesome. The night before, we did a giant benefit gala at this like swanky French restaurant in Silver Lake.
What happened at that swanky thing? I think you should tell this publicly.
Yes, I think everyone needs to know that. I was seated next to Stephanie Rothman.
Yes.
And we got along like a house on fire talking about movies. So everyone who thinks we didn't get along on the show, that is not true.
Oh, no. Stephanie loves Elric.
I had bumps in the interview.
Did she touch your face?
She didn't touch my face. I really don't think she would have liked that. But no, it was fun. She actually talked to me for about 30 minutes about the origin story of Christ himself, the actual man, and how it's radically misunderstood. And I was sitting there, it was actually pretty interesting. She's cool.
Yeah, it was a fun night. I hung out with Nancy Schreiber for a while, who's a well-known cinematographer, and just met some absolutely amazing people there. We had a really good panel. The whole thing was a benefit, and so we raised a good amount of money for the scholarship. And then the next night, we had Etheria. Which is really cool because I got to be on the red carpet with Rob and Elric again, and Ryan, who we need to Photoshop into some of the pictures.
Well, Ryan,
if
you want to know our mischievous behavior, so to shatter the illusion, what happens at red carpets is you normally hold up a sign of who you are.
Oh, yes.
So that all the photographers know. Elric and I switched at the last minute, so we're hoping there's a series of photos that he is credited as Rob G and I'm Elric Kane.
Plus, I had to drag them on there to begin with. Yeah. Like, they had messaged me ahead of time, and they were like, be sure to get a shot with the guys for press stuff. And then we get there, and they were like, I don't want to do it. So.
No, it's not that we didn't want to do it. It's we couldn't leave our drinks behind. We were like put in a corner, and they're like, you can't leave this after the line to get the drinks. They're like, you can't leave this corner.
You have to prioritize these things.
And so,
I get it.
Like, good men, we slammed it as fast as we could to join you on the red carpet.
And thank you for that.
You got it. And then we
looked spiffy.
We look classy as shit.
I did watch the Etheria shorts, and I just want to give a shout out to Creswick.
That was our favorite.
We were going to talk.
Oh, you guys are going to talk about the stuff you said. All right. Well, as someone who wasn't there, let me just chime in ahead of time and say I like Creswick.
I was a judge. That was my pick.
That was my favorite.
Yeah, that was my favorite as well. The three of us were in agreement.
Australian-Japanese director. I just found out by looking her up.
Natalie James was the one that did Creswick.
Really thought that film was tonally is like exactly what I love in a horror film, where it's really mysterious but also dark and has a good gag at the end.
Did not see the ending coming. Was not. And it's something I'd never seen before.
Yeah, no,
so
really interesting.
Kind
of Lovecraft vibe. And the other one I thought that deserves a shout out was Instinct by Maria Arita, the AFI film thesis.
The painting one.
Yeah,
I went home.
Oh, yeah, that was
I
good.
looked up that actress because I was so impressed with the one who was playing the new artist, the bloodletting artist.
Young girl. Didn't she looked familiar, but she's not in anything that I know.
Okay, so yeah, I went home and researched her because when I first saw her, I thought that she was the main girl from the Western segment of Tales of Halloween. And then I immediately went home, and her name is Jordan Monahan, and I loved her. And yeah, she had.
See, I love the older woman. I thought the older woman was really elegant, and just something about her, it made the whole thing. It just is a very consistent, very hard to pull off tone. I think it's very consistently bleak, but you're drawn into it, like
completely.
Yeah, and that was an AFI short. It's like 18 minutes long, and I think
somebody
it's
in the audience passed out during that.
Yeah,
segment.
I heard a big thud, and then a lot of people running. And
there was a segment about bloodletting that even I was like,
for art, basically, draining blood for art and using it as kind of a, as your paint, so to speak. But no, I was really impressed with the entire lineup. And I mean, every year it seems to get better and better, but like the quality of film and filmmakers and the first short, Laboratory Conditions, which was directed by Jocelyn.
And that one won.
Stamets, yeah. That one won both the jury
everything.
and the audience award.
Swept.
And I mean, it was very impressive because Minnie Driver and Marissa Tomei were in it. So right off the bat, you're like, oh, wow, they got these big names to be in this. And it had a very cool... Actually, I think the guy was in Splinter.
Yes.
The dude from the movie Splinter?
And I think he's from like a big TV show.
Yeah,
he's famous. Like he's like a...
a lot of recognizable faces.
Shea Wiggum?
Yeah,
not Shea Wiggum. No.
Shea Wiggum.
He's like the young guy with the glasses in the movie Splinter. But anyway.
Yes. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
No, I mean they're all really terrific, and I'm curious. Do we know yet how we can see them? Like, does Etheria do something where the links go online?
They tour. I know
they tour them around. Like they take them. Usually, the Day of the Dead convention in Indianapolis will screen them, and they tour them around a bit. Because I know when I had a short with them a couple of years ago, like it went to like the Tokyo Film Festival, and they had an Etheria panel there. It went to Glasgow, and they had an Etheria segment there. So they definitely take it all around the world. And then you can always find these shorts at some other festivals. Like I know some of the ones that I really enjoyed, I've already noticed, are playing other festivals as well. So I really recommend checking out the Etheria Festival site and seeing what was playing there and trying to find them.
And some might be out online anyway. I mean, a couple of them, because if it said like 2017, for all you know, they might be. I'd have
to research, but I know they're all listed on the Etheria Film Night website.
Yeah.
And what about, tell us, so Liz Marshall was the winner of the Stephanie Rothman.
Yeah, and it was...
a listener of the show.
And a listener of the show,
nice
which was totally awesome and surprising.
Yeah.
But I do have to give a giant thanks to Blumhouse Productions, who came in and gave a nice donation to kind of help us reach our final goal on that one, which was absolutely awesome. So thank you, parent company of Blumhouse Productions. We love you. And so the winner, we had several hundred applicants, and it was really tough. Like we narrowed it down to 25 people, and then we narrowed it down to 10 again, and then we had discussions about the 10. And we ended up deciding on Elizabeth Marshall, and she had submitted the short called What Daphne Saw. And it blew. It was between Stacey, Heidi, and I were doing the judging, and it blew all of us away. And we were like, we want to see this short made. And she just graduated, so the award money is going to make the short for her. And and she's a Shockwaves listener. Like as soon as I emailed her and we were like, congratulations, she immediately responded back and is like, wait, you're with Shockwaves? And I was like, yeah, and the scholarship. Like she hadn't even made the connection yet. So it was really cool. But she's just a diehard horror fan who wants to come sit in on the show sometime.
Cool.
So she may be joining us in a couple
weeks. We don't
weeks.
let people listen to the show.
except
Elwood, who's hanging out
Walker
today.
In the house. On-air shout out.
So yeah, but Etheria Night, it's always one of my favorite times of the year, and it always kind of renews my faith that the industry is making big strides, and the fact that I got to, work with you guys to give away a scholarship this year was just one of the best highlights of my year.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, it feels good to be on the front of these things, change. It's nice. I thought it was great.
All right.
You should be proud.
Yeah.
I know. I saw a wacky movie with a lot of people, and I think Elric has finally watched this too. Did you make it through?
Oh boy, I did. I did make it through.
Oh wait, is this a film I love?
This is Liquid Sky, baby, from Vinegar Syndrome. Have we finally done it?
Oh,
we have done it.
Okay,
I'm in.
I had to create an environment to revisit this movie. I haven't seen it in 20 years.
You've seen it though.
I saw it I saw it 10 years ago on a kind of crappy DVD bootleg with like this punk rock chick. It was like her favorite movie, and she's like, "We need to watch Liquid Sky," and I was like, "Okay."
Was this like a date? That's That's a weird date movie.
Kinda, but not really. Again, it's 10 years ago. But so this time I was like, all right, I have a pristine Blu-ray. I need the craziest people I can possibly think of to watch it with. So of course I invited Adam Rifkin over, who had seen it theatrically. And the last time he saw it was in the theater.
Wow.
And then Natasha Kermani, the director of Imitation Girl, just because I'm like, this seems like a movie. You're all New York. And it's like a dual role.
I mean, as soon as I saw it, I thought of her movie.
Yeah, I was like, but she had never seen it. And so they came, and Josh Miller, of course, because he's always down for weirdness. And so the three of us watched it, and we were kind of blown away. Rifkin was commenting that it looked better than when he saw it in theaters
probably
20 years ago. He was like, this is even better than I remember. I don't know, dare we say if it's an experience. I don't know if I could say this is a good movie by any means, but this is direct. All right, so it takes place in New York, but it's directed by Slava Sukerman, who also did the score, which could be one of the worst scores.
It's so weird.
It's weird and not good,
and it does not match the movie.
Not at all.
Nope.
But it does feel like it was made by aliens, which fits the plot of the movie. And it took us a while to realize, because there's a main female character who is a model who's got a twin brother, and so it's totally David Bowie. Like
it's all androgynous. Yeah.
And it took us a while to realize it was the same actress. We just thought, oh, did they get twins together? Wait, is that the same girl playing both roles? So there's that part of it. Kind of in the New York scene, the New York heroin scene.
And they hate each other.
Yes, they do hate each other, which I thought was pretty hilarious. And I guess an alien orb kind of lands on the top of this building and only attacks at the moment of orgasm.
Yep.
Is that kind of what's going on in this movie?
That's what's going on.
And then there's like a shimmer to the, a liquid shimmer to the people as they orgy out.
So alien heroin is a chemical that is released in humans at the moment of orgasm.
Yeah, and that part's factual. Right?
Totally factual.
Yes, that's happening.
Yes.
I learned that from my
research that.
I learned that from my Come in Peace. I almost followed this up as a double feature.
It definitely felt like it could have been made in the Warhol factory. Like he would have been just sitting around going, "Yeah, let's make that movie." It's interesting, man. I found it to be a bit of a slog at the start because it felt less like a movie than it felt like an art scene. It felt like, oh, here is a documentary about an art scene.
But that's my favorite part.
I think
it's interesting. Yeah.
You texted me a few minutes in saying, is this an actual movie? Or is it just this?
Is it just, the first 10 minutes.
The 20-minute me and my rhythm box performance may be one of my favorite sequences.
Wow.
But it is interesting. I mean, it's definitely a strange movie.
Oh, I just remembered. Okay. So there's also this woman, the German guy that's studying the spaceship, which literally is the size of like a shoebox on top of the apartment building. And then there's the woman who has a telescope, and they have this weird like relationship where like he's just completely clueless how badly she's trying to seduce this guy. And the other thing that's happening is basically it's kind of like that New York heroin model scene where everyone's sleeping with everybody. And I remember I came up with it, I was like, the horror of this movie is that I do not want any of these people, I don't want to see any of these people have sex with each other at all. That is what makes this movie terrifying, is every time they introduce two people. The only one, like maybe this German guy and this woman that in the apartment complex, I was like, I don't want to see them, but if anybody does, it should be these two. I'm guessing.
She looks like the nurse from Basket Case who screams. I wonder if
that's totally,
she really looks like it. That would be amazing if it is
New
her.
York,
But when I was watching it, I texted Bekah and she told me that was the part that was really frustrating because the brunette in the movie.
Me and my rhythm box.
I kept going, like, who is she? I feel like I know her. And then you dropped the knowledge on me.
Yes, that is the little girl from Alice, Sweet Alice.
That's right.
And that's the only two things she's ever been in.
So I spent the rest of the movie like Wikipediaing trying to find out what happened to her, but I guess she moved to Seattle and had a baby and is happy. That's it.
There's no twist of the story. Alice, Sweet Alice, and that's it.
And then she's done.
She's great. In both of these, she's really great.
No, she's one of my favorite characters in this one. I love her personality in this. And whereas the main girl just kind of seems to be angsty about everything that's happening to her, the other girl, the brunette from Alice, Sweet Alice, definitely has a lot more personality. So I love her in this. And I shouldn't say love. Love is a weird word to use with this film. I am fascinated by this movie. I want to have conversations with whoever wrote this because it does come across like a fever dream. It's nothing that I'm like, I want to watch it every night. It's more of like a weird fascination.
It is unlike anything you've ever seen.
And the lead actress co-wrote it. And
oh, really?
Yeah, I think she had a big part of the creation of this. And I think I was watching the extras where she's talking about about her time in that scene, and I got the feeling that it's kind of like they're living these vacuous lives. They're letting people have their bodies who they're not even into. They're just kind of like, somebody shows interest, so they just kind of give it up. And she was like saying it was right on the cusp of people getting AIDS too, and a lot of her friends started to suddenly get AIDS, and she realized, I should change my role in the scene. Yeah. And a lot of it was from heroin. It wasn't AIDS just through sex. A lot of it was heroin use. And so the extra feature, I just started watching the interview with her, and it was really interesting as her talking very candidly about this film. I think that I'm with you. I think this is a really interesting movie. I definitely didn't love it, but then sometimes like movies, that it doesn't really have like narrative structure, so it's much more like impressionistic of a scene. And I was drawn to it, but it doesn't really fulfill the horror alien stuff very much. It's very, very background information.
I very loosely call it a horror movie.
But it's interesting.
It's just one of those, like, I want to sit down with some of the people and just be like, okay, now explain the chicken scene. Like, justify the chicken scene for me. There's just so many just weird, off-putting moments that I'm just like, why was this necessary to be in the movie? But it's there, so I feel like it needs to be part of it.
That's the fun of watching with a group, especially somebody as sharp as Josh Miller, because the whole first half there's references to shrimp, repeated shrimp reference. You're like, why do they keep bringing up shrimp? And then that morphs into chicken.
Yes.
So like, oh, now we're into chicken or whatever. But more importantly, I just love. So there's a character that dies after his brain or whatever explodes after having sex with the main girl, and then the boombox girl shows up, and they have a box. And they're like, all right, we better get rid of the body, and they have like a Christmas tree style box that just happens to be there, and it's just like Josh was like, it's a good thing we have this human shaped box here to put this body in. It's like little convenience things like that where you're just like, oh man. But it is unlike any other experience. I can't necessarily recommend this to an audience. I'm going to be clear because certain people, like somebody had bought and watched Nightmare Sisters and hated it. And I was like, did you hear our review? And they're like, well, yeah, that's why I bought it. I was like, okay, did we not set it up properly? What kind of movie you're getting into? So I don't think anybody listening to this can love and like Liquid Sky as a good movie, but it's an experience to watch.
Yes.
Analysis doesn't necessarily mean endorsement.
Yeah.
Bloodhook.
Well, we watch everything. We watch everything.
Are we fans of Bloodhook?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, you are.
Oh,
You're a fan.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, go see Bloodhook. Rent Bloodhook. Buy Bloodhook.
The 2-hour version,
So-
not
The 2-hour version,
cut
yeah.
one.
When I lived in New York City, one of my favorite things to do, one of my favorite things in the world was just walking around the city by myself, which I miss daily. But I used to watch movies like this that were shot in New York, and then I would literally figure out where everything was shot and just go walk around by myself and see all the locations. And so I found where their apartment was, and it's now a swanky hotel.
Of course it is.
But at the time, it was apparently a shithole. And someday when the four of us end up in New York together, I will take you on my Zoe Lund tour, where I take you to Zoe Lund's first apartment and her second apartment, and the apartment she shared with Abel and everything. So yeah,
cool.
Zoe Lund. But
yeah, I agree with you. I think people should see this film. I think it's been mentioned for years, and it's it's definitely a key cult movie. It's key in that canon. So it's kind of thing like once you've watched it, I'm more interested to see it again now that I know what it is, because all these years I guess I had something else in my head, a lot more like she's an alien having sex, and she really isn't. She's just her, and it just happens to have some connection to the alien. You don't know what it is. It's never really said. So it's
Josh told me he always confused it with Blue Sunshine for some reason.
Totally.
He's like, oh no, I've never seen this movie at all.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of Blue Sunshine.
Love Blue Sunshine.
So anyway, what have you guys seen?
I took a evening this week to sit down with my fiance and watch Ninja 3: The Domination.
That's right.
A film that I have never seen.
Which I just gifted to Elric.
Yeah, I just got it.
My God.
New
this
edition.
is
The one where they're
incredibly-
possessed, right? It's like an exorcist.
This is about a ninja who is attempting to assassinate a scientist on a golf course, and over the course of 15 minutes, I'd say pretty much the entire LAPD police, the whole police force comes rolling onto this golf course, and they hunt the ninja. They shoot the ninja. They beat the ninja. They continue to shoot the ninja, but this motherfucker won't go down.
Yeah.
He throws down ninja smoke bombs, and then he disappears, and the LAPD's like, where the hell did he go? He buried himself in the dirt.
That quick?
That quick.
Oh,
By the
man.
way,
To avoid...
opening 5 minutes.
This
so
is
you're not missing.
Oh no, it's longer than
Yeah.
that. It is like 10
Okay.
minutes, 12 minutes long. It is a very long time before they took this ninja down.
Oh my gosh, he's
And
like
then
a tremor.
He is incredible. He is a
a
very
grab away.
crafty ninja, and just nearby is a woman who works for a very beautiful woman who works for the telephone company. And while she's, working on some fiber, she comes across this ninja. He puts the whammy on her and he basically possesses her. So it's this very beautiful woman who's of two souls. One of a woman who loves aerobics and video games and doesn't drink soda. And doesn't date cops, but she does later on. And then
very hairy cop, by the way.
A very hairy,
hairiest I've ever seen.
Jesus Christ! And then you've got the soul of the ninja who's in there, who then proceeds to use her body to exact revenge on those who killed him. Why he was after the scientists, I don't know. Why he was in America, I have no idea. What his ultimate purpose, I have no clue, but this guy from Japan flies in. He's got one eye, but he can take care of the problem. But this is a marvelous, marvelous film. Elric, if you've never seen it,
I don't think so.
Please do so.
I think I'm thinking Teenage Exorcist is the one I had seen. Is this campy?
There is a part of, there is an exorcism.
This is canon.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've probably seen clips on that Canon
Well,
documentary.
it's called Ninja 3 because, even though it's not really a sequel, because they made Enter the Ninja,
Yes.
then
Which
they
I've
made
seen.
Revenge of the Ninja, and hence this is Ninja 3, The Domination.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
But it's directed by Sam Furstenberg, who also did Break Into Electric Boogaloo.
Well, that one's kind of genius.
Yes, which he made. I want to say it was right before this, even though it came out after. Was it? I think he shot it before because that's how he found Lucinda Williams, who's the lead of this movie.
Lucinda Dickey.
Dickey, that's it.
And who's also the star of Cheerleader Camp, one of my personal favorites.
Oh,
Yes.
is she like the puffy-haired girl?
No, she's the one that wears the mascot costume.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to go to spoiler on Cheerleader Camp, but
Yes.
I think people have had a couple decades to catch up on Cheerleader Camp.
But yeah, this is unlike anything you'll ever see. I actually did the commentary with the director on this disc.
Oh, nice.
Did you really?
A couple of years ago, yeah.
Oh, shit.
They re-released it. It came out 5 years ago. And I had never heard or seen of it. They were like, hey, can you do this commentary? I was like, I don't know this movie. Like, well, watch it. And I was
marvelous.
like, I am there. I have so many questions. Yes, we get together with him, and I thank him publicly for Breaking to Electric Boogaloo. And then we get down to business.
yeah, it's pretty marvelous. You get, beyond the hairy cop, you get floating samurai swords.
You do?
You get a possessed Lucinda Dickey walking around in the middle of the night. You get an exorcism. I mean, there is just
the most epic usage of V8, which is
The
supposed
drink?
to be, yes,
Yes.
supposed to be sexy, but it's no.
How do you make
the funny thing is,
sexy?
she's like, I'll just tell you. We'll just tell you. So basically, after pushing this cop away, going, no, I don't date cops, and he's like, come on. And then she's like, all right, come back to my pad. She takes a shower. She walks around nude, and then the cop's like, oh, hey, you don't date cops, and she's like, she pushes him down on the couch, and then she cracks open a can of V8 and pours it on her neck and down her chest.
What?
And then the sex commences.
Oh.
Yes.
V8.
That's
V8
it's
is
very healthy.
foreplay.
Yeah.
I wonder if V8 paid for that ad.
But this movie, I mean, it was really funny because when I came home, Sierra was like, I want to watch Jacob's Ladder. And I was like, oh, cool. That'll kind of clear up my Shockwave's argument. We can watch that. And I said, or we can watch Ninja 3. And I explained to her what it was, and she said, all right, let's just watch the Ninja 3. So very, very fun film that Scream Factory just put out, and you guys need to pick it up.
Yes, and if you go to YouTube, you will find the infamous V8 scene. As I'll show that one. I'll show you guys in between.
Lucinda
right.
Dickey. And you know what? The bonus features were good. I just didn't get to the commentary, so check it out.
Cool.
Well, coming off Liquid Sky and Ninja 3 Domination, I'm going to raise this up just a little bit. I rewatched Annihilation.
Oh.
Because the first watching, it definitely left me with a couple of questions.
Did you see it in theaters?
I did.
I didn't remember you going.
I ended up seeing it a matinee at the Dollar Theater near, or I think it's up to $2 now. Thanks, North Hollywood. So I saw it there on like a matinee, and it definitely left me with some questions. And so I was really excited to rewatch it. And so it is now on.
Did you get
Amazon.
answers?
No.
Okay.
No, actually, I'd say on the second watch, I actually have more questions because this time I was like paying attention to things as it went along and had even more questions. But that said, it's fucking amazing. And I absolutely loved it. What I did notice a lot more on the second screening was the soundtrack. which I was really aware of the Crosby, Stills, and Nash stuff the first time through. But the second time I became more aware of that and the set design. Like, you pay attention to the flowers the first time, but then when I rewatched it, like, I was most aware of the set deck, which was just absolutely
I'm dying
gorgeous.
to do a couple spoiler episodes where we
we
do
should.
like that in Hereditary, like in depth, because there's certain things that I've been thinking about with, especially what you're talking about, little things that at the time when I'm watching, I was like, oh, is that bad? Like a mistake, and then realizing later it's the whole point of the movie that I really wanted to, but it's like, we can't ruin it on these. So
yeah, and I have questions that I wanted to ask, that I want to discuss with somebody else, where I want to be like, okay, this happened, here's my theory of why, what do you think? I guess I just need validation so that I feel better about myself, but or justification. But yeah, it definitely, I approach this movie very much in like a David Lynch style, where I'm like, I don't understand exactly every single little bit of the minutia, and so I want to like argue it with somebody.
I feel like narratively it's very straightforward,
It is.
but philosophically what's going on is a little
Philosophically, I think it's a little.
There's more you have to kind of dig for it.
No. I mean, like in terms of the David Lynch scale, I think it's a couple notches above David Lynch. David Lynch just goes pure nightmare fuel weirdness, just for the sake of weirdness, sometimes possibly. But for this, I feel like there's a purpose for.
That's what I want to believe.
I think there's a purpose for everything.
Yeah, there's like a couple of weird, off-putting moments that I had seeing it on the second time that I was suddenly like, oh, wait, that happened. I forgot about that happening. Why did that happen? And I want to discuss theories. So we're going to have to do a spoiler show.
And I still think it has the scariest. I even would put it scarier than anything in Hereditary. I think there's one scene in that I still think is
that
best
scene
horror
is
scene
that
of the
scene
year
is literally
so far.
Scariest thing I've seen this year.
I disagree.
Really? I mean,
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking about either.
Yeah, I mean,
There's two
think
scares, but there's
It's a bear.
not the scariest scene for me because it's coming.
Well, yeah, but
you
it's
don't
something
know what it
does.
is.
Yeah, it's something it does that I thought was really useful.
For me, and I think I mentioned this, I can't remember if I talked about it a few weeks ago, is I finally watched it on Blu-ray, and the CG in this movie is so unforgivably bad for me that I didn't find that. The second it showed up, I was angry. Because
I didn't even remember thinking about the CG on the big screen.
And that's the thing,
why.
because there's 3 or 4 sequences before where they just tease it in the background, and it's like really scary and interesting. But when you see it, I was like, oh, this is. Yeah, you couldn't have a rubber head.
But it wasn't
right
the
there.
seeing it that was scary. It was something in the
being
sound.
too dark to really see.
Oh, the sound was
that's the
creepy,
thing I'm trying not to give away,
but it didn't. That was not as scary as Hereditary.
Oh, man,
to me.
we need a spoiler show.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but the idea is what terrified me. So yeah,
Okay.
okay. So I want to talk more about Annihilation.
Annihilation's rad.
All right.
I saw one that we're doing an animation episode for the other show, Pure Cinema, and I came across a horror animation that I had never seen. It's the 2007 black and white horror anthology from France called Fears of the Dark.
Oh.
And it had one short that made me think of you, Bekah, because it's by my favorite comic book artist, Charles Burns, and it is such a Bekah story. It is like it's a great little short. I like this film in general. A couple of them are a little idiosyncratic and not really scary. There's horror imagery, but this one is awesome. It's like literally out of black hole. It is a boy who loves to chase insects and capture insects, and at one point he finds this insect that's kind of shaped like somewhat human, and he captures it and keeps it under his bed for a while, and then eventually it somehow escapes, and then he starts having nightmares as he grows up, and he becomes a college student, and he's still obsessed by insects, and he goes out one night, and he's never dated or slept with anyone. He meets a beautiful girl at a bar who seems really popular and cool, and he starts dating her, and slowly she starts like dominating him and taking over his home life, and he doesn't really know what to do. And then he sees this weird mark on her arm, kind of like the holes in Black Hole, the weird kind of ripples in the skin. And slowly you realize this is like an insect revenge movie, and it is so. I love that short, but it instantly made me go, "Oh, this is a Bekah insect movie."
Okay, I'm in.
And the last short, because it's all in French, so it's French subtitled, even though some of the filmmakers involved were American. And the last short is like a guy in a haunted house. And it's great. Like, it's just, because it's black and white, it's really unusual to see an animated black and white movie, too. And I thought that last short was equally good. Those two are particularly strong, and this one is available on the Sundance channel, I think. That's how I watched it. But I thought it was cool. It was a cool anthology if you haven't seen it. I had heard about it back in the day, and it was one of those things I was like, I don't usually chase down animation in general, but have you guys seen this one or not?
No, I remember
Fears
when it came
with
out.
a thing around the S?
Yes.
Dark.
Oh, my God. That was
like
I
2007.
played at a festival. Yes.
Yeah.
That was when I saw it.
But the one the Charles Burns one, I think everyone listening to this would probably really dig.
I need to watch it.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Did you end up getting to watch Serial Experiments Lane?
What are you talking
I'd recommended it to
Serial
you.
Experiments
Serial
Lane?
Experiment Lane. Lain. When you told me you were doing animation, I was like, you have to check that out.
No,
it's
because,
really cool.
Yeah, I had so much to watch.
Wow.
Sorry. 6 years.
6 years. 6 years.
boy.
You'll circle back.
Yeah.
Another Blu-ray pickup for me. This is from MVD Rewind Collection. They had done Return to Swamp Thing that I talked about a couple of weeks ago. They put out the 2006 Ryan Schifrin movie, Abominable.
Yep.
I've never
Which
seen this.
I remember Ryan. We were
saw
in
it
the
so
in the
much.
thick of the web game when this came out, and it was a lot of fun at the time. It was Ryan is the son of Layla Schifrin, the legendary composer. So Layla did the music for this, and it's just a really fun Bigfoot movie. It's got everybody from Jeffrey Combs to Matt McCoy to Lance Hendrickson to Tiffany Shepis has a bit part in it, and it's just basically a rear window with a Bigfoot, and the monster looks pretty cool. What's fascinating about this Blu-ray they did is they really went above and beyond. Basically, they shot, I believe, if I'm getting it correct, they shot it on film, but they never transferred the footage in high def. They had just done a DVD transfer, which was good enough for a DVD at that point. So apparently they went back to the original materials and completely re-edited it shot for shot in high def. And that includes redoing and finishing the effects because they lost all the effects files for like little things like the Bigfoot's eyes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so basically they have restructured this movie from top to bottom, recut it, redone all the effects and everything.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so it's a little bit slightly more polished than what we remember on the DVD, although it includes that DVD version as well, if you're a completist. So I rewatched it again. And basically, Matt McCoy is of Police Academy 5 fame.
Is that Mission Moscow?
Wait, what was he in?
No,
that's Citizens on Patrol. No, wait, that's 3.
Miami. The
6 is
Miami
Mission
one.
Moscow.
Oh, wait,
No,
what was
7.
he in the Miami
7?
one?
Jesus.
He's the lead guy that replaced Steve Guttenberg, who obviously should have been Steve Guttenberg because he has that swagger, or he's supposed to be Steve Guttenberg. But anyway, he's in that. He's in a wheelchair after a terrible accident. He goes back to this town.
Star 6?
He might have,
I think
probably.
he is.
Yeah.
Bekah coming in with
Sorry.
the Deep Star 6 facts.
But anyway, he comes back home to a cabin, which he hasn't been to since this, accident that him and his wife had. And he's in a wheelchair, and across the way is obviously a cabin full of young girls that are partying, this and that. And basically, they initially just think he's like a kind of creepy, a voyeur, just like watching them. But he sees something in the woods, and there's a giant Bigfoot that is running around kind of between them. But really, they have small scenes, but Jeffrey Combs steals this movie. Him and Lance Hendrickson have a great sequence around a fireplace where they're talking about the Darwin Awards. And so for that alone, just to get to see Lance and Jeffrey Combs, who I don't think had done a movie before this together and might not have since. Yeah. But this is the one movie that you get to see those two together. So that's really fun. And Ryan included 2 of his short films on here too. So I always love when filmmakers do that, when they include a lot of their early work so you can kind of see how they've grown and gotten to this point. So really good disc, Abominable from MVD Rewind Collection.
Nice.
I'm presuming I'm the only one at this table who saw Rampage in theaters. The Rock, giant monster movie.
Yeah, I did not see it.
Yes, but I do want to see it.
Okay, so I was in another part of the country for the last week, and there was one night where I had absolutely nothing to do, and I looked across the street, and playing at the theater was still Black Panther and Rampage. Good on Black Panther for still being in theaters, now obviously being on home video across all platforms, and good on Rampage as well. I went across the street thinking I was going to be the only one seeing Rampage, but it was a semi-packed house.
Wow.
Which was insane. I'll make this brief because there's something larger I would love to talk about. But it is, did I think they would make a Rampage game after being I was a disciple of the arcade game. I loved playing it, but there's obviously no story. This film is a Saturday morning cartoon brought to life.
Oh, that's awesome.
Very lampoonish characters. The Rock is obviously probably the most grounded character of the group. But there are villains, very distinct villains, mustache twirly baddies who are responsible for these giant monsters coming to life. But man, the effects were really good. I'll say that. I had a really good time. Once the monsters all descended on Chicago for a reason, it was just, I found myself chuckling because you got George, who is the big ape that's Friends of the Rock, and who isn't Friends of the Rock. And all the monsters are kind of going out of their mind for a very good reason because of the villains. And they're all like kind of descending on this one particular building. And there was just one shot that had the gorilla climbing up the building, the giant alligator thing climbing up the building and doing his kind of like slow movement.
Is he?
And then, and then the wolf that has wings like a flying squirrel, like all climbing up the building. And I just went, yeah, I'm into this. Because the alligator climbs up the building and then he decides to go through it as opposed to keep climbing. It's just something really... I think it was baked into my DNA. I just love giant monsters. I love giant monsters stomping around shit. And if you throw the Rock in, even better. So
I love that Rock.
I do love the Rock.
I'll watch anything with that dude.
Guy. I mean, like
he's great in Moana too.
I'm sure he is.
I just saw the new Jumanji. Great.
Oh, Jumanji's great.
And what's the new Die Hard movie he's in? It looks like
Skyscraper.
Skyscraper.
Because it's him.
Skyscraper.
But it's the Rock.
Yeah.
He's got an artificial leg. I'm in.
I know.
He's what?
I know.
He's got like a bum leg.
He's got like a bum leg, and I was like, okay, what is that? What is it? It seems like this is the year where people are missing appendages just to like get me on their side.
Yeah.
And it's like no. I mean, yes, obviously, but when I saw the Rock trailer with him, I was like, ooh, Nev Campbell, hi, Scream. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, the Rock is missing a leg. Oh, I got to see how he gets out of this. And then the next day, I saw the trailer for Dumbo.
Oh boy.
And it was Colin Farrell.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, I'm gonna start crying because they're singing the song and then there's little baby Dumbo. And then you see Colin Farrell and he's got one arm. And I was like, no, Colin Farrell, why do you have one arm? But anyways, Rampage was enjoyable.
I lost so many hours to that game when I was a kid.
Did I.
I mean, like the standing arcade game, and then when it came to NES, I mean, but you could do moves on the standing arcade game that you couldn't do on NES.
Yeah.
So like the down punch, the down punch when you'd like move really quick down the building.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that on the NES.
That one of them doesn't turn into a human.
Well, I think that should be the sequel.
And scamper off naked while holding their own crotch.
I think that should be the sequel. I think the Rock should turn into a giant fucking monster.
Yes.
And then
Now we're talking.
And then what you have is in the trailer, you've got the giant monster stumbling through the building because he's a monster and he doesn't know how to use his monster body. And then the next scene is all of these people shocked on the street, and then you've got a naked Rock going, oh, pardon me, excuse me, and then like turning away because he transformed. Elric's giving me a look of complete confusion.
Did you never play the game?
Is this and I'm making sure is this the trailer that starts like Gorillas in the Mist? Like it seems like it's about him and this big gorilla.
Yes,
that's the trailer.
That's
okay,
the trailer.
weird.
Yeah.
I keep thinking that was like a small movie, and then I forget that it turns into this giant.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge.
Okay,
but in the
I don't think I do remember the game though.
Yeah, in the same vein of video games, I just want to do a little shout out to something that has consumed my life. Goosebumps Horror Town. If you guys haven't played this mobile app, get into it. It's a lot of fun. Bekah called me playing it because I had to unleash my monsters. But basically what you do is you have a blank canvas, a town, that you can build streets, build buildings.
So it is Sims. I literally said, Ryan, are you playing Sims?
I never played Sims,
right
so
now?
when people say, is it Sims? I'm like, yeah, sure. And then what you have is you build buildings, and then these little mini spooky stories unfold, and you get all the characters. And then every once in a while, once you've unlocked certain buildings, you can unleash the monsters on the town. And you've just got, there's a particular amount of glee I have from seeing all these civilians running and then these monsters chasing them, and then you collect the scary faces, and then you add that to your collection of scary faces, and you get more things. But the programmers have identified that I am a power user. So within 2 days of me playing, because I've been on set and I've just been kind of like in my off hours at the hotel, I've just been playing. They sent me a private email and they're like, hey, just a heads up, we'd love your input. And I was like, how do you guys know that?
They're tracking your gameplay.
But anyways, I got CR on it now. But it's a really fun game. And if you're a fan of the Goosebumps property, a lot of familiar characters pop in, a lot of villains and stuff like that. So anyways, Goosebumps Horror Town.
Well, before we move on, I have to give a shout to Rampage for amazing merchandising toys. I have not even seen the movie yet, but if you go into Walmart right now, they have a whole like
what
section section of Rampage toys. And the coolest thing, and we are now the proud owner of one of them, they have Stretch Armstrong-ish dolls for all of the three main characters, Ralph, Izzy, and I can't remember the name of the monkey.
Ralph?
George. And so we got Ralph and Izzy, but they're like full Stretch Armstrong, like late 70s Stretch Armstrong. But they have some amazing toys for these,
Lizzie.
which
Nice.
Marnie had to have. So we now have several of those.
I want to mention really quickly, I know Elric talked about it, I think it was last week, but I watched Scalpel, the Arrow Blu-ray, after you mentioned it, which is very much a very sleazy version of Eyes Without a Face, if you do say so. I did try to watch the the version that the DP did, and I couldn't.
Is it just too extreme?
It's
because I didn't watch. I watched the other one and then looked at it.
It's too dark.
Okay,
it's too dark and a little too weird. You can actually switch while you're watching, like back and forth. So I did it for a little while, and I was like, no, the Arrow was right to correct it. The way it is. But listen to Elric's review of it. But it is But this is the director of Blood Rage?
Yeah, it's a very different movie, but still bonkers.
I was kind of blown away by that.
It feels just like a drama to me. Like there wasn't a lot of horror in it. And it's called
Scalpel.
Scalpel.
Southern Gothic sleaziness, though, which I love. That's
a lot.
About,
and the girl playing both characters. And then him having a romantic relationship
That's
with
the
her.
part that I
the
was
one that looks like his daughter.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's when it got tense
good
for me.
stuff.
But then there's fun twists that happen after that. So anyway, check out Scalpel from Arrow.
I like it.
Another thing I wanted to mention that I think all of us watched it. This is something, Elric, you brought up, I think, on Killer POV years ago.
Oh boy.
And it is The Staircase, which has now made it onto Netflix.
Yeah, it's been my favorite documentary series for
I
decades.
had not seen this until you guys were talking about it at Etheria, and then I was like, I have to see this, and I'm on the 4th episode now.
It's great. So basically, you had told it's basically about the death of this woman named Kathleen, and in a mysterious circumstances, falling down the staircase. A whole lot of blood, a lot of weird marks that don't make sense. And her husband, Michael Peterson, was the one that was basically accused of murder.
Because he was the only one there at the time.
He was the only one there that discovered the body, etc. And so the documentary was from these French filmmakers who basically followed the case. But where it gets interesting, because people are like comparing it to Making a Murderer, and I'm like, yeah, but this is 10 years before that.
Yeah.
So this was a documentary that was 8 episodes, which is, I think, the version you saw when you told us about it.
Yeah, when I first knew about it. Yeah.
Then they did a follow-up maybe 2-3 years ago about...
Pretty recently, yeah.
Yeah, 2 episodes.
Yeah, just to kind of show where the court case had gone.
Yes, and now Netflix has created 3 brand new episodes.
Which I haven't watched
So
those
there's
yet.
13 in total, and they're all on Netflix now. And again, if you're into those true crime kind of deals... the case does keep getting more mysterious and weird, and although I missed the owl thing, which you said is in there somewhere.
It definitely is in the early stuff. Just
that
as
was
a theory.
because I'm on episode 4 or 5 now, and they've definitely thrown out the owl theory. In which case, I was immediately I was suddenly like researching, like we have screech owls, and then I was like, could one come in a window, knock somebody down, and then somehow escape back through the window without leaving any trace? Like the crazy ninja owl.
Well, there was trace, wasn't there? It's the whole point.
There's some
she had hair, whatever. Anyway,
but
that's the most outrageous of all the theories.
But if you want to, like in watching Mistrial of Justice, that kind of thing. What is our justice system like? This isn't a spoiler because whether he's innocent or guilty, this has been 10 years since I've seen. I still don't know how exactly I feel about it. But in terms of just watching how the judicial system works against you in this country, and especially if you like people like us, you're into horror, suddenly you have less a chance in that court case. Like watching the information add up against this guy is pretty brutal, and really I think it's just fantastically put together.
And that's something interesting that the documentary does, is when you watch Making of a Murderer, it's clearly its main mission is to prove that this guy is likely innocent. And when you were watching some of the other ones on Netflix, like it's clear from the get-go that they have kind of a slant. This one, at least, and this is just, I'm only on episode 4 or 5, does not seem to have one.
The director definitely does. I don't know about the new episodes, but he's said in many interviews, like the only reason it seems maybe slanted towards Michael is because that's the person he's following most.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have an agenda. Like, I've seen interviews with the director where he says, I still don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
all these years later, he doesn't know 100%.
You should definitely see the last 3 that just got added to Netflix because it's interesting. I mean, if you can Google after you watch kind of stuff that happened, but the editor on the project all these years is apparently with him now.
I mean, but they also fell in love after. Like,
Wait,
it's not
with
like
the
initial,
director or with Michael?
With Michael Peterson,
the editor. She's a French
the
editor.
character of who they're following.
Okay.
But that doesn't affect the originals.
No, it
because
does. No, it doesn't.
They hadn't.
No. They hadn't met
they
until
fell
after.
in love in this process later. You know, it's, and I think
But a bit weird.
happens. You know. I don't know.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'll throw out a couple more. So I had posted up on Twitter a couple of days ago that I love the movie The Bay and that I wish people that there was another one like that. And this goes back to
who made that?
Blumhouse made that.
Did they?
Yeah,
Here's $5.
that's a Blumhouse
footage,
film.
yeah.
Thank you.
Before my time.
So yeah, but I absolutely love that. It definitely, and I don't like found footage films usually.
Even
But
though this is the second week in a row you've talked
I
about
know,
one.
right? Right?
So if it's next week, we will have a trifecta.
So, but I love the bug-based stuff. And there are not a lot of bug-based horror movies. They just don't get that much action for a number of reasons, I feel. But I had posted up that, I wish that there was some others. And people on Twitter immediately referred me to two of them, one of which I discovered I had seen before. So the first one I watched was 2006's Larva.
Ugh, I already don't want to watch it.
Date night with Bekah.
Date night with Bekah. No, this one had William Forsythe in it, who was playing this like angry, brooding cowboy, who was he was gnawing on the scenery the whole time. He had really like long flowing hair that he would flip when he got angry. The whole concept is that there's this evil meat company, and they're like putting all these chemicals into the cows, and it's causing this is like a very common plot line with insect horror. So it's causing these parasites to grow at an alarming rate, and then oops, now they're eating people whenever they eat the beef, and then it goes crazy and they grow to huge proportions. This movie was definitely like Sci-Fi Channel grade. I will say, like, I had fun watching it because William Forsythe kept flipping his hair around and chewing on toothpicks. That said, I would not call this a good movie by any means. Do you got a parasite in your ear?
Larva.
She's talking about Marvin. Ryan ripped his head on his
Something was
pants
crawling
off.
around.
Sure it was.
Who was using these headphones?
And then the second one that I saw is from 2009. And this one, as soon as I started watching it, Ryan's seriously
super
here.
sick now,
What's
right?
up?
We had video of this too, actually.
What did you do?
What did I do? I totally
Planted like
everything.
Star Trek II Wrath of Khan larva.
I think you might notice that one wandering around. Those fuckers were big. So this is from 2009. This was a Lionsgate film called Thaw. And this one had Val Kilmer in it, who was also gnawing on the scenery, but he was not in the movie very much. You could tell that like they could only afford him for a day. So they have like a day of Kilmer and then he's done. And this one had a much smarter plot where it's set in the Arctic Circle. They are there investigating global warming, and they discover that a woolly mammoth has actually been kind of defrosted and unearthed from the ice. And then they discover that there are these prehistoric parasites on the woolly mammoth that breed uncontrollably. There's never a point where they grow to like Sci-Fi Channel levels. It's always just crowds. It does feel a lot like an X-Files episode, but like an X-Files episode that I would really like. So I enjoyed it in that regard. Fun effects. They did. My favorite moment in the entire thing, though, is when one of the grad students approaches and he has his notebook and it says like vertebrates on the front of his notebook, and he has misspelled vertebrates. So that was fun. But this one is better of the two. And if you are into bug horrors, I recommend checking out Thaw. The effects were pretty good. But then again, if you're really into bug horrors, just, start with The Bay. So
The Bay.
Yeah.
Right.
I had a good quick question for Ryan. Or is there a follow-up?
I was going to
It's in my
say,
ear.
Is there another insect horror?
no, well, kind of, actually. Not really. I rewatched Pitch Black. It's on
That's a good
HBO
one.
Go right now. And so I watched it last night at like 10:30. I was like, I'll just watch Pitch
All
Black.
right, Diesel or Rock, you guys.
Diesel.
Let's make the choice. Diesel or Rock. Are you a Vin?
Rock.
Or are you a
Rock.
Oh,
What
see,
is
I
this?
like
You can only choose
Vin.
one.
Personality alone.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Well, I mean, Vin, he's kind of a smartass, but at the same time, he's kind of like a gross smartass. Like by
Would you watch Larva with him?
No.
Would you watch?
I don't think I would watch Larva with anybody.
Would you watch?
Vin Diesel ain't watching Larva
Deep
with
Star
her.
6
No.
with Vin Diesel?
If he asked, potentially.
Would you
no.
go to first base with him?
Would you go to first base with The Rock, Ryan?
This is going into weird
It's
territory.
getting weird, dude. But
There's
no.
a crazy hairpiece in that one Sidney Lumet film where and you're like, what the hell is he doing? It's like, that's so wrong.
He shaves his head with diesel oil in this one, or it's some type of like
God.
axle grease. It's fun. But yeah, so I forgot how much I love this movie. Like I knew I'd love this one. I did not enjoy Chronicles of Riddick because Chronicles of Riddick was like where they doubled down on the Vin
Got too
Diesel
big.
quality. reality.
It got too big. It became an intergalactic, like.
Well, Pitch Black
80s.
was very Aliens to me. That's what I haven't seen it in years, but I remember it being almost like a low budget Aliens.
And that's what I had completely forgot was how low budget. And I mean, when I looked it up, it actually wasn't. It was $23 million, which I guess is small for like a studio pick. That's still pretty small.
It felt big. It felt big.
It felt huge. But then when you watch it, I realized last night the majority. There's occasional times when they're in like metal structures, but I would easily say 60% of the movie is outside in sand with maybe some bones behind them. And it's just an 8-person cast. Like, I think it starts with 12, and then by the time that the movie gets going, there's only 8 of them left. And then so what they're paying for, I'm sure, was digital effects. Plus, Vin Diesel was not, like, this was definitely his breakout movie. Yeah. So it was not like a
Wait, is that the same director as Triple X?
It's David Towie.
Oh, yeah, Towie. Yeah. It's not the Rob or whatever.
So yeah, I just really enjoyed
that's what I liked about Riddick is that, you know, Towie took it a little too far into the let's build a franchise for the Chronicles of Riddick, and then with Riddick he pared it back and made it more, again, a creature feature action movie.
But Riddick bothered me. Well, it didn't bother me. It just this one, I mean, like, Vin Diesel's character is a total asshole, but not to the point that he's unbearable. Right. I found him borderline unbearable in Riddick, where I was just like, you're just an awful person.
What's up with David Towie's IMDb pick, man? Look at that thing. He's gone fishing.
And then I will also say, just a quick plug.
He's gone.
He is gone fishing. Maybe that was while filming Below.
Oh, could have been.
I do like Below.
I love Below.
I think he's just in Bloodhook mode, quite frankly.
Bloodhook mode. And so last plug, just because it's one that never got a lot of love and it should have received a lot more. Tale of Tales, which was on my top 10 list from 2 years ago, is now on Netflix. So watch it.
I've been meaning to watch that,
actually. It did not get a lot of love, and it's quite possibly one of the most beautiful films
it looks
I've
great.
seen.
The only bad thing is it's really long. It
is.
Yeah, but it's because it's an anthology, right?
It's good, but the anthologies, they all wind together, so it's like you never realize when one story drifts into another because you're following the characters through.
The quick question for Ryan was just to clarify, because you weren't here last week for the Heredity conversation, and we know you liked it because we heard you talk way back, but I wanted to, have you seen it again since that first viewing? So you have seen it since the first viewing? What's weigh in just so we can
really Shockwave's approved.
Yeah, just so we get that clear.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think
what was it like on second viewing? Because I want to see it again.
Well, I was seeing it with CR, and I was seeing it with people who have never seen it before. So she turned to me and she was like, and I was like, what? And she was like, no, there's some really silly stuff at the very end. And I was like, oh God, I was really into that.
Yeah.
So it's one of those divisive movies, and you know what? I still liked going on that journey. I mean,
I think it needs to have a little bit of the silly stuff at the end. Otherwise, I think we would all die.
Oh,
because it's so heavy in the middle. I think we need something a little crazy.
I think that, I do think it's got a little bit of a pacing issue in that middle section that you can easily kind of trim back.
And I think make it a scary movie. If you trimmed a little bit in the middle and gave less answers,
no,
I think it'd be scary.
I'm okay with it. I mean, like everything. I feel like the film is pretty clear cut the first time around. Yeah. I understood what was going on. The second time around, it was about watching some of the details of the revelations and all the stuff that's in there. But on the second go around, it also showcased some of its plotting flaws where you're like, wait a second, you are revisiting a thing that you went to the first time around, and now that's pretty apparent, some information.
But I also wonder how much is lost. I mean, not that I want to see a 3-hour version by any. I do not. But,
no, I don't.
But clearly the guy said, his first cut was 3 hours. That's not great. His first cut, but the actual cut he originally could have shown. And so that means there's a lot of family stuff on the floor. So I wonder what was essential, what wasn't.
You know what? But I think he got the best family stuff out of it.
Yeah, I think so.
There's nothing more than I needed to see at all.
Yeah.
So
I think it's a great film, but I am curious to see it again. See how it changes a little bit. But it is Shockwave's approved then.
It is Shockwave's approved.
Yeah. And not necessarily Mole approved. Mole audience is not necessarily loving this
movie.
Not
going to like it.
But what can you do?
I just want to give a shout out to Stephen King. Stephen King.
He needs it.
Stephen King.
He needs it. He listens.
Yeah, exactly. He's a huge fan.
Shocker all the way.
I'm currently reading his latest book, The Outsider. This is the first King book I've read since Under the Dome.
Looks thick. Will he ever slow down? That's a lot of books.
I mean, I skipped over the Mercedes
so many
trilogy.
pages.
Yeah, but I usually tend to gravitate back to him when he goes into these big, epic, meaty novels.
Yeah.
So this is a wonderful book so far. Given that he doesn't.
What kind of
horror?
What kind of thing is it? Like what kind of vibe?
It's a procedural for the first half. So basically, you've got a story of a little boy who is found murdered. viciously, like sodomized, throat torn out, all sorts of vile stuff had happened to him. And the local police, this is set in, it's set in Michigan. And it is, and all the local police and their investigation, they have every shred of evidence that points to it's the Little League coach. Every bit of, they have eyewitness reports, they've got DNA, they've got all this stuff, and then they pick him up in a very dramatic fashion, and he's like, I wasn't even in town. And they look to find out where he was, and all evidence points to he wasn't even in town.
Yeah, so rock solid alibi, right?
Rock solid alibi.
But who else could it be?
But what could it be? Yeah. And I'm getting now into the many answers. But man, it's
the
just
cover of the, because the cover of the book looks like a real horror thing with
monstrous.
Well,
and it's starting to lean.
Touched that yet?
It's starting to lean there. Okay. Yeah. But I think this is definitely king at his prime and very good book. I'm a big fan of Under the Dome. I felt Under the Dome kind of dropped the ball in the last last third. But I like King when he's doing stories like this and not doing these kind of like 3-parter Mr. Mercedes types things. I just don't engage in that. So, no, welcome back. Great stuff. Give it a read.
Wow.
Nice.
And if you want a great comic thing for summer, I've been reading, I think I already mentioned that Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing. I'm borrowing all the graphic novels of that, and it's just, I'm absolutely head over heels in love with this story now. It's just so good. Like that world, really cool. I can't remember, is it called Return of the Swamp Thing? I can't recall. It has a different name than just Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
But it's a great...
I think there's collections of just the Alan Moore Swamp Thing stuff.
No, that's all I'm starting on. So I'm like a couple books in. Really good stuff.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get our guest.